fucking metal show. Welcome to Big Beats fucking metal show.
Yo, what up and welcome back to Big Pete's Metal Show. Alright, now today we're going to be doing the 10th list in this series, 10th video, the top 15 albums of 1993. We started with 1984, you do the math, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. We're on the 10th one, baby. Alright, so let's just jump into this, and at number 15, we got Suicidal Tendencies. After all these years, still Psycho. Well, kind of said that ass backwards, but yeah, you get the gist. It's a re-recording of their first album with a couple tunes off of the Join the Army album, and one new song right in the middle of the album, I believe. Haven't listened to this in a while, but it is old material, but it's with a more like newer production for 1993. Rather, you know, they were a bigger band, they could afford a better production, but yeah. So number 15. We got that. Number 14, now this is a band who I would usually put higher on the list, but this album was a little bit different. It was like thrash light, I guess you would call it, and not some thrash on it, a little bit of groove metal. Anyway, let's just jump to the chase. We're talking about Annihilator, Set the World on Fire. Jeff Waters. Even though it's not like as good as a lot the first two albums, and what to come after it won't be that good compared to those two either. This is still a good album, and it makes the list at number 14. Number 13, I got Strange Highways by Dio. It's a good Dio album. It's not my favorite. It's a little bit more on the evil side. Dio just made an album with Black Sabbath the year previously, so it's not going to be like that classic type of Holy Diver type of metal from the 80s. It's a little bit different. And coming in at number 12, we got Entombed with Wolverine Blues. Probably one of Entombed's most recognizable albums. It's what you would call death and roll. You know, it's more or less kind of like groove metal, but with the death metal vocals. So it's supposed to be like rock and roll, but with death metal vocals. But you know, it's a good album. Makes it number 12. And number 11 on the list, we have Violence with Nothing to Gain. Despite losing Rob Flynn, this would be a pretty good album. I would have put it higher up on the list if it had better production or if it had Rob Flynn. But it would be their final album, and it's a good way to go out. Number 10. I got Metal Church, Hanging in the Balance. Now, this is a pretty good album overall. I thoroughly enjoy it. Of course, it's the last one with Mike Howe until 2016's Metal Church XI11. But the only complaint I have about this album is the album cover. And it just looks really weird. I feel kind of awkward if I was like buying that in the store. Got it on eBay. Anyway, going on to number 9, we have Overkill with I Hear Black. If you recently remember, Overkill just made number 1 with their last album, Horoscope. This is the album to follow, which follows a little bit more of a groove metal. It strays away from their thrash sound, which would be the first in a series of their albums to do so in the 90s. But it's still a good album and makes it number 9. Going on to number 8, we have Nuclear Assault with Something Wicked. Again, this is an 80s thrash band which lost a core member, Dan Lilker. He left the band, and this was Nuclear Assault's last album until their reunion like 15 years later. But Something Wicked is pretty good. It's got some thrash tunes, it's got some slower headbangers, like more into the groove metal. I think a lot of thrash from the 80s was starting to do either fizzling out by this time or doing groove metal, and that's a good example of such. Number 7, I got Tool with their debut album, Undertow. Now, of course, I could say all kinds of things about Tool. They're the prog masterpiece and whatnot, but Tool, they're not my favorite band, but I really like them, and I feel like most people would put this album really higher on the list. However, it makes it smack dab in the middle of mine at number 7. It's a really good album. I remember hearing Sober for the first time, and that just kind of blew me away. So, that's when I really got into Tool, and, I like their stuff, and so, Tool. You can't not put them on the list, is what I'm trying to get at, but they're not my favorite. Coming in at number 6, we got Individual Thought Patterns by Death. Yep. The mighty Chuck Schuldiner and his death metal. Every single album that they produced, from Scream Bloody Gore up all the way until the very last, it just gets better and better every time. They just build on what they had and made it, more interesting, basically, because Chuck was a genius. So anyway, let's get on to number 5, where I got Sacred Reich's Independent. Now, I know a lot of people might not, Sacred Reich fans, they might not like this album. They say it's the worst Sacred Reich album, but I think they can go fuck themselves, because this is a fantastic album. And once again, it's an 80s thrash band doing more of like a little bit more groove metal, straying away from the thrashy sound, but still retaining thrash, like I said earlier. Number 4, we got a truly unique masterpiece here with Cynic, Focus. Now this is gotta be like a death prog metal, mostly prog. This album at the time, it had to have been fucking 20, 30 years ahead of its time. It feels like this should have came out today, because the way, it's hard to describe it. It's very, very proggy, and it got like the robotic vocals mixed with the death vocals, and it's just a very unique album, and I think it really wowed people back in the day. If you can see, I really like Cynic. I got one of their posters here that came with their second album. Their second album wouldn't come until 15 years later, I believe, 2008. Yeah, so good stuff. Number 3, we got Carcass with Heartwork. Probably their most recognizable, most famous album. What else could be said about this? It's just a fantastic record. I love it. Number 2. Now, this was a big one for me getting into metal back in the day, because at the time this was like the heaviest shit I would listen to, and I love Max Cavalera, and if you don't know by now what I'm getting at, it's Sepultura's Chaos AD. This is full-on groove metal. They were doing thrash in the 80s with Schizophrenia and Beneath the Remains, but Arise saw the groove metal, before it started becoming a trend in metal, if that's even if you can even say that without getting crucified. But yeah, Sepultura with just so many classic tracks right off the beginning, like Refuse, Resist, Territory, Slave New World. This whole album is just a kick in your fucking teeth. There will be no honorable mentions. We're just jumping in right to number 1. And of course, number 1, we have Anthrax with Sound of White Noise. This is the first Anthrax album to bring in John Bush, replacing Joey Belladonna. And it's the first Anthrax album in an era that a lot of people hate, but to those people I can say, fuck you, because John Bush is an amazing singer, and he did a fantastic job in Armored Saint, and Anthrax did an even better job bringing him on board for this album. And this album is from track 1 to 11, 56 minutes of awesome. And it's a little bit of thrash, it's a little bit of grunge, it's a little bit of hard rock, a little bit of groove metal, all interweaved and mixed together to make a fucking truly unique and awesome sounding album. And track 2 only, is the first Anthrax song I ever heard, and I instantly fell in love with it. It was one of my favorites since then, and since I've listened to the whole album years back, still to this day, I love it. Alright boys, so the original end of my video got fucked up. My camera kept cutting off the audio for some reason, so fucking gay. Anyway, that's the end of the video, so fuck you. Keep it metal, stay brutal, and peace.